Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us in our first session of Performance in Real Life, which is Klaar's new monthly webinar series focused on performance management and what's actually evolving inside modern organizations. Performance doesn't happen once a year, but most organizations still treat it that way. So through this series, we're going to be digging into moments that really shape performance in practice. So feedback, one-on-ones, goal setting, etc. And with honest conversation around what's working, what's not, and where performance is headed next. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Lana Peters, Chief Revenue and Customer Officer here at Klaar, and I'll be moderating today's conversation and future sessions of this series. Before we jump into today's topic, though, I'd love for each of our panelists to give a quick introduction and share a little bit about their backgrounds. And as always, we'd like to start with a fun warm-up question. So tell us where you're all dialing in from and one thing that might be surprising about you. So Hebba, would you like to start?
Would love to. I'm Hebba Youssef. I'm the Chief People Officer at Workweek. I'm the founder and creator of a really fun brand called I Hate It Here. There's a newsletter, a podcast, a virtual event series called HR Therapy, and a community called Safe Space for People Leaders. It is a good time. I get to write about what it's like to be a CPO in this day and age. And I think all of us would agree it's pretty wild to do this job in 2026. It's been wild since probably 2020. There's been no turning back, right?
No, it's been so calm and so much fun.
Right? I've lived so many lives since 2020, and I hope to continue to live many more after this year.
The fact that we lived through 2020, I think is positive right there.
What a wild time, like telling people how to wash their hands and all that good stuff. What was my fun fact question? I'm in the Washington, D.C. area, right outside in Vienna, Virginia.
That's your fun fact?
Oh, I have a fun fact. I'm supposed to give a fun fact.
Oh, I thought we were supposed to give a fun fact, or is that just
okay? I will. Wow, I love that we're derailing.
It could be fun. It could be fun. I don't know.
Okay, my fun fact is, I'll go with this. I read probably anywhere from like 50 to 100 books a year. Last year, I think I landed at like 75. This year, my goal is like a flat 100, and I'm at probably 26 right now.
Any particular kind? Any kind of book you're looking for? Any particular kind of book?
Oh, I read a lot of romance novels. The biggest genres are romance, science fiction, and fantasy. And I do not read business books because I'm living them every day.
I'm like the opposite. I do like romance novels. Colleen Hoover is a favorite, but I tend to be reading a lot more business books, which is, I need to stop. Not like I was laughing when you said romance novels before you answered it, because if you have not watched Off Campus, yeah, it's based off of books. Now I want to go read the books because I'm so infatuated with the show. And I'm like, why am I like this? It's like a bunch of college kids in the show.
It is a good show, though. I watched it for the first time over the weekend. Like, oh my God. Yeah. All right, Hebba, thank you. Sarika, up to you.
Okay, hi, I'm Sarika Lamont. I have not had a chance to ever meet you, chat with you. You don't follow me on LinkedIn. I am the Chief People Officer for Vidyard. Vidyard is a AI and video enabled go-to-market tool. I live in Sterling, Virginia, which is not that far from where Hebba lives. My hometown of Vienna is where Hebba lived, or is living now. My fun fact is I'm a cheer mom, which maybe isn't surprising to people that know. I actually think it's surprising about me. I always wanted to be a cheerleader, but I am like a hardcore. My daughter is a cheerleader in All-Star Cheer. We are gone a lot from like basically December till May. We are like all over the place traveling. And I am insane about it. I'm more insane because I'm like obsessed with my daughter, and I just think it's such a cool sport to watch. So that is my fun fact. That's what I spend a lot of my time doing between that and
yeah, you and I should chat about that. I have, my little one is the same. So yeah, lots of travel. Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't. How did I not know that? Okay, well we're gonna have that chat. I did not know that.
Yeah, we'll connect later on that. All right. So thank you both for joining us. We're very excited to have you here. So I think a lot of us can agree that performance is a little broken right now. Maybe a lot broken right now. So work's changed dramatically. We already nodded to that. AI is changing manager expectations even faster. And yet a lot of performance processes still look exactly the same as they did 5, 10 years ago. So today we wanted to unpack how Hebba and Sarika are thinking about this and what a more modern approach to performance might look like. So just some quick housekeeping items. We'd love to have an active chat stream today. I see it's already active, and thank you for that. Feel free to comment and ask questions throughout. We'll get to as many of those questions as we can. For starters, let's all drop in the chat where we're dialing in from, which I know some of you have done, but some of you just joined, so please feel free to do that. We'll also be sharing a few polls, so be sure to participate as they pop up because it covers our screen, and we want to make sure that we have everyone's participation. Before we get into our first topic, I'd love to take a quick pulse check from everyone in the audience because I'm just really curious about where teams are today when it comes to AI and performance management. So, how is your organization currently using AI in performance management? Please submit your vote. We'll do the little Jeopardy sound. Well, maybe not. I'm not a good singer. All right.
Oh, lots of people using it.
Yeah. Hebba, Sarika, what are you thinking of the results? Are you surprised? What do you think?
I don't know. I'm not going to week to week on this one because I always assume that everybody's using AI, and then sometimes I'm like, no, a lot of people aren't. So this maybe is a little surprising, but also like pleasantly surprising that there's. I think if we had done this a month ago, we would probably see very different results. So I'm glad to see that there are people that are actively using it or at least experimenting with it.
Yeah,
I think it can really be a game changer for not just for like the HR side, but for our actual managers and our employees to actually get a little bit more out of the process.
I actually just had a conversation with a customer about this last week. And I love that they were very honest. They were like, I want to use AI. I'm scared of AI. And I was like, that's a fair statement. Absolutely fair statement. So I think that everybody's got it on top of mind. It's a matter of how deep they're diving in right now. So
yeah.
All right, well, let's take a look at topic one and just dive right in. So we're going to talk about why traditional performance management is starting to break down. Okay, so this is a question for both Hebba and Sarika. Mm-hmm. When did you first start feeling like traditional performance management wasn't really keeping pace with how work's evolving?
What a good question.
Years ago?
I feel like I was like hip to this early on in my career. Because I would go through these. I worked at a company where we did quarterly reviews, and I truly felt like I left each review and then just started writing the next set of reviews. Yeah. And I was like, this is not helpful for me, for the employee, for me assessing anything. It's not aligned with our comp cycle, but they're saying performance determines comp, and that doesn't feel right either. So I feel like I have always been a performance management naysayer, and so much so that my second edition ever of I Hate It Here was performance management doesn't actually measure your performance. And then it trended on Hacker News where all the engineers were like, oh my God, someone's finally saying it. Like an HR person admits it, that this is not good for us. And then that was my claim to fame. I was like, I'm trending on Hacker News. But I felt like it wasn't helping me as a manager. Then I felt like it wasn't helping me as an employee. So then when I finally was in charge of performance management, I was like, hey, we have to have a real conversation about this because it's like not working for me as an employee, for me as a manager. It's not even working for me as HR. So something is clearly not right.
Yeah, even though I think a lot of people love to say that HR builds performance management as a check the box and like what they need to have like check a box. And I'm like, not actually true at all. Never. What people often don't consider is, you either are like doing it out of Google Sheets and Google Docs and Excel documents, early on, or you're beholden to whatever the technology is that's at your disposal. And we know obviously that with AI coming about, it's made it more possible to actually design the tools and to actually enable the process that we're looking for rather than the other way around, where I feel like in the past, I've never been able to be creative about how I really want performance to operate inside of the business because the technology wouldn't allow us to actually execute and implement our approach. And so I would hear all the time from these like fancy pants consultants telling me like, oh, but you have to design the process you want and then enable. I get all that, but But the tools, the technology of 5-10 years ago, even 3 years ago, didn't allow us to design the process that we want. And so what I'm most excited about, with look, there's a lot of reasons I get to be fearful of AI, but there's also a lot of reasons to be thankful for AI. And one of them, I believe, is very much rooted in the ability to design performance in a way that feels more impactful and in a way that where people feel like, dare I say, maybe somewhat excited, because the way that we're going to leverage these tools and potentially an orchestration of multiple tools is going to put a lot more power in the fingertips of our employees and our managers to have better conversations. We're not just focused on like a check the box exercise or putting everything in this like form. So yeah, I mean, I have never loved performance, I'll say that, but it was actually like probably my first foray into HR, having never been in HR, but doing more strategic talent development because that's what the business needed I was at. That was one of the first things that I tackled by way of like a career framework. But then I'm like, I want to gut this entire performance process. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I absolutely see that. I see very much that the new technologies that are out there, including Klaar, give you the ability to execute on you guys' amazing ideas and design ideas that you couldn't do a few years ago. So it's a good time to be in performance right now. Hebba, what parts of performance management feel most outdated to you?
Oh man, what a good question. God, everything. I know I'm not allowed to say like everything, but even the process of writing a review feels so tedious and it feels so unnecessary and it's irritating. I'm like, if I am in Slack all day long giving feedback to my direct report, if we have a meeting and we have meeting notes, like, why can't my review just generate itself? And I'm not saying it generates itself and then I hit submit right away, but like even the process of writing a review feels like clunky and outdated and like exhausting. I'm like, if I'm doing everything right as a manager, like giving feedback in Slack, putting it in writing in email, following up on it during our monthly one-on-ones that are recorded with a note taker to make sure we're all held accountable, not just my direct report, me as a manager as well. Why do I have to then go through the process of hunting down all my data points and then having to type it all again in a review that wastes my time?
And that's a good question, Dominic, right here, just raising it, like why, the why question. We hear it all the time. Why do performance management in the first place? What's your thought on that? Why do we need to do it? Or do we need to do it?
This is such an interesting question because when I started at Workweek, we did not do reviews for the first year. We just did feedback Fridays where I made every single person practice giving feedback for like a solid year before we did a review. I didn't want to do reviews ever. I was like, if people are checking in every 2 weeks and are keeping a documented log of all the feedback they're giving and they're receiving, then we shouldn't technically have to do reviews. And then we had an employee come to us and say, I really want a review. And my CEO was like, she really wants a review. Should we give her a review? And I was like, we have to do reviews now. Like we just said for a solid year, we have like doubled down on giving really relevant feedback every 2 weeks. Why a review? And I think it's like this push and pull between we as employees have gotten conditioned to believe we need a review to justify our performance. And then we as HR and leadership think we can only make decisions if that stuff is documented in a formal aspect of a review. Mm-hmm. So there's this contention and like friction between the employees are conditioned to believe they want it and HR doesn't actually believe everyone is really doing their job. So they have to build a system to be able to justify the decisions being made. And then at the end, I'm like, no one really wins in all of this, because if we're just building a system to make a decision, we're not actually growing and developing the employee. And we're also not putting good practices in place as HR.
Right. The big question that comes up all the time on this is, what about comp? What do you tie to comp? Yeah. And what you're describing here with the Feedback Fridays is continuous feedback, which I agree absolutely is the way to go. But how do you tie in comp? And I think there's a couple folks even in the chat that are asking.
My fantasy is that we don't tie it to comp ever, or performance and comp are separated, but that's
a whole separate dialogue, because that's
fantasy.
Right. And everyone says that in all these rooms, like, oh, we just separate. I remember this at Transform last year. There was a woman talking about how they started this new performance cycle and it was all rooted in feedback and the power of feedback and why this is important. And oh my gosh, and we did this and this and all these right results. I'm like, great. So then what'd you do about comp? Because she's like, we separated comp from the conversation. I'm like, great. So then what'd you do with comp? Oh, we haven't figured that part out. Like, that's the second phase. I'm like, but hold on a second.
Yeah.
You spent a whole year doing this thing around feedback and performance, and
Yeah.
now you divorced it from comp, but you can't actually tell your employees how we make comp decisions, which then the challenge becomes, how do we ensure that the comp decisions we're making are not riddled in bias? And what is it actually tied to?
Yeah.
And I'm also not saying that having it tied to performance means it's not, because we always know that there's the whole component of performance is about feedback and about humans assessing someone else's performance, and how do you really get to like that being about performance.
Yeah.
And I personally still don't have the answer, because this is something that I constantly am noodling and constantly trying to improve upon. But what I have found in my own organization, because when I came into this organization 3.5 years ago, they did not have a performance process either, but the business had been around for a while. I think by that point, they'd been around about 11 years. But still a younger company in the context of headcount. And it was interesting where folks really wanted more clarity on their expectations in their job. And like what they were essentially asking for was a career framework and some type of a job architecture. And what was happening was managers were sitting in a room and plotting people in a 9-box, which I wanted to pass out when that was like what I was told. I was like, I'm sorry, what? That's not how that's supposed to be used. But even worse was they plotted people in a 9-box with no clarity of like, this is what it means to be plotted here, here, and here based off of performance and like your role. And then they were never having conversations with the employee about where they were plotted or the feedback. And then they were making comp decisions based off of some completely ridiculously biased 9-box assessment. And it was very one directional. And there was, right. So then everyone's telling me when I get here, it was like the number one thing, it's not transparent and we don't understand how our pay works and we don't understand performance and we want people to give us feedback and all the things, right? So then as a business that's growing and scaling, you start to design for that. Right. But what people don't realize is like when you start to design for that, that comes with a set of expectations. It will come with a set of policies and processes and things that we need to adhere to make sure that it is transparent and we are not biased and we are making decisions and we are holding you accountable to these things that we say are important for your role and your level. And this is the promotion process. You are going to need to be able to do X, Y, and Z and demonstrate that. And if you're not, then you are not going to get promoted. You're going to have to spend more cycles. And then that created its own another set of challenges. We're like, well, hold on a second. I don't want all of that, because I want feedback and I want to get paid and I want to just get promoted. And I don't necessarily want it to be entirely about my performance against these expectations. And so that's a whole different side of this.
Yeah.
And again, I think that still comes back to just performance management. I don't know if it needs a total overhaul, a redo in terms of verbiage or what, because it's something I'm grappling with even now, because I've been burning our performance process down and working with our partners, happen to be Klaar, in redesigning what this will look like in a predictive AI performance management tool. But it's people are still wedded to sort of the way it's always worked, and it makes it difficult.
But I think, some people are wedded to that. A lot of people are wedded to that because that's where they see their financial gain or they see their potential to move up in the organization. If it wasn't wedded to that, that would be a completely different thing. And I think that would be an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah. Dominic keeps saying bingo, but I don't know where we are bingoing.
The mark. I think that's what he's saying. Yeah. All right, Sarika, one more question for you. What do you think managers are struggling with most right now when it comes to performance?
So I think, with all the changes that have happened over the last couple of years, when the layoffs started, back in 2023, 2024, it started in tech, but now we can very clearly see it's made its way outside of, just the tech industry. What that ended up doing was managers had more people underneath them that they were leading and having to provide feedback on. And sometimes, and a lot of times, they may be leading people that are outside of their sort of like their day-to-day functions. So they're almost like some, adjacent function to what they're working on. And so now they're having to context switch different people that they're leading in different areas. And so what I feel like I know our managers are struggling with is the sheer time of I have to be leading people and being able to provide them feedback about their performance, what they're doing well, what they're not, talking about the OKRs, what's going well, what isn't, where they are in that, give them career growth opportunities, talk about their career development, talk about them missing metrics or OKRs, But then also some of these leaders are also they're also responsible for amount of work. They're like part IC, if you will, to some degree, as well as leading and managing. And then there's just context everywhere and there's just data everywhere, right? And it's hard. It's hard to be able to spend quality time that employees are desiring, but they deserve it. And I also can't keep up with the amount of enablement that has to continuously happen as things are constantly changing in the job, in the company, in the world of work, with AI or otherwise. Like the cycles of how people are learning or how much change is happening is a whole lot faster now, where we no longer are OKRs. We don't even work in our 3-month sprints anymore. We work in 6-week cycles because it's moving so fast. But managers are having a hard time. I'm having a hard time keeping my managers abreast of all that, but managers are having a hard time keeping their people abreast of that in a way that also is supportive of their development.
Right.
And so where I feel like AI is helping, and we're still trying to figure it out and build for this, is they can get context from a lot of different places. Where, like, Hebba, you started off by saying, I have my AI note taker. I have, I have Slack. I might have email. I may have other, areas that information is flowing, right? And data is flowing. That is all context. That is super important. So what we've been trying to design, I designed something called the second brain with my head of IT that pulls context from a lot of different conversations I'm having, and in different systems that it might be actually like documenting that. And so what we've been doing is building that second brain by team and by function, such that when it comes time to doing our reviews, there is context inside of our tool that we use with Klaar, but there's also context in a lot of other places. And so how do we then connect those, different places and sources of data in a place that then, almost like through an MCP or otherwise, to take all that information and help us draft really powerful, feedback that the information is there. I'm not asking AI to write something from scratch for me necessarily. It's just taking the context that I have and working from that starting point. And I feel like we're making progress there slowly but surely. And where employees for themselves, but also managers have made progress there has been really, really impactful. And what we're already hearing is employees feeling like they're already having better conversations than they once upon a time did, even in their weekly conversations, because there's a lot more context being surfaced from other places.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So we've talked a lot about why traditional performance management is starting to feel misaligned and how work happens today. And then enters AI, right? And suddenly organizations are having to rethink not just about systems themselves, but the role of the manager inside those systems, which brings us to our second topic, which is how AI is reshaping the role of managers. This is something we hear about nonstop, because you may have an incredible design and you may have an incredible system, and then you have managers that may not be supported, that may not have what they need, that may not be trained properly. So we want to talk about that and the role of the manager and how important that is. So for both of you, AI is obviously dominating every HR conversation right now. Where do you think it can genuinely improve performance management?
I mean, I would just, as a follow-on to what I was just saying, I think right now the cleanest win that feels like that's the most palpable that I hear from managers is reducing and I would say from employees as well, is reducing the documentation burden, right? Writing a performance review that actually reflects somebody's year, someone's whatever, whether it's quarterly, monthly, whatever your timeline is, but like being able to take all of that context, that's a cognitively heavy task, right? And if you're doing that 6, 8, 10 people, like that is a lot of cognitive load and context switching that has to happen on top of your already day-to-day work. So most managers do it well, but it's not because they don't care. It's at least not in my experience in this organization. Our managers really give a shit. They're just stressed because they give a shit and they don't know the best way to do it, right? So they're they're trying to reconstruct months of context in essentially like a 2-hour window, sometimes less, sometimes more. I believe where AI will fit into that, and already is fitting into that, is it can help surface patterns, insights, signals, organize the evidence that you'll need. And I think it gives managers a really healthy, strong starting point that if pulled from the appropriate places of context is really going to be grounded in evidence of things that have actually happened. And that actually in and of itself, an employee will feel that. And it changes the quality of the output. Because I know there are times where I've talked to my manager in the past and I'm like, you clearly don't know what the hell I do day to day. Like, this is the most like generic bullshit you pulled from somewhere, I don't even know where, because you think that's what my job is, but it's like not actually evidence based on what I'm actually doing. And I've seen that happen, and it's actually more discouraging than it is encouraging. But I think this is where AI can help. I also think feedback consistency, right? Like, that's a hard thing to fix in calibration, is when one manager writes like this 3-sentence thing in review and the other one writes 12 paragraphs. And then I think what AI is helping is to level the floor, right? To not make it so that everyone sounds the same, or someone has more of an upper hand because that manager is just a bit more loquacious than someone else is, right? So we're making sure that everybody's covering the same ground. I really think that AI is already proving to be super helpful in both of those areas.
For sure.
I will go the opposite. So Sarika covered that. I will not belabor that. I'll go the other side, where last year I read every single one of our 65 reviews to get a sense of like what was going on in our organization, because I had no visibility into like trends across teams, trends across managers, trends across the organization. So where I think AI can really help is like surface those trends that maybe are being seen in like reviews that you might not ever know as HR. And I think that can also help you even plan for the future of your company, flag any potential flight risks, figure out if you have gaps in your organization when it comes to things like communication and vision and goals and OKRs. And so like that is where I could see AI adding a ton of value. I also like thought about downloading all of our reviews and then uploading them to ChatGPT. I was like, I don't have time for this. That also doesn't feel safe or ethical. So I also don't want that happening. So there is a lot that I think AI could do on just like the trend level that could give us actual insight into how is our organization performing.
Yep. So let's look at the flip side. Where do you think organizations are getting it wrong? How are they using AI wrong?
I think what I'm seeing in pockets is everyone talks about the AI slop, right? And you know, there's like, we have the do's and the don'ts, the goods and the bads, and like policy around that. But that the most common mistake I'm seeing is AI being treated as a replacement for the conversation, and being like a thought partner and like a support for the actual conversation. Like folks, and I think it's changing, but I'll even say like I felt it in my own organization a year ago when we first started down our path of AI transformation internally, is like people getting super excited about the AI generated performance summaries that managers will just like throw something in. Maybe they don't provide a whole bunch of context and they just take whatever AI gives you as face value. And like, AI must know, AI's all knowing and knows everything that's going on. And right. And so they just take it and they don't actually like really read the context to see, does this make sense to this individual? So people are just like throwing it at employees, which can have the unintended effects. And I've seen it happen already. I also think organizations are still skipping the enablement step. So you're rolling out a bunch of AI tools for managers and employees. I would say managers and employees alike, that's supposed to be helpful, but they're not running, they maybe run a single training session. And this is always going to be the challenge for HR, right? Like we have to constantly be enabling on all the different things that are happening. But particularly with an AI, like people are not treating this as a behavior change. They're treating this as just like, I'm throwing a bunch of tools at you and you can go figure it out. That's not how behavior change works. We're talking about people and behaviors and change management. And so the managers who are already good at giving feedback know instinctively how to use AI to get better. But we know that a lot more managers avoid hard conversations. They avoid giving the feedback. They don't want to upset anybody. They're worried like, oh my God, if I say this, there's going to be like a legal ramification for it, right? So they don't know how to leverage AI yet to allow them to work more efficiently and more productively to be able to help them close that gap. And so without really concerted focus and intentionality around the enablement on how to use AI in the context of performance, and all the different ways you can use it in the context of performance, not just writing a review, you're going to continue to have a bunch of slop being thrown at people and having the unintended consequence of employees feeling even less valued than they did before. Like at that point, I would rather you just not have the damn conversation, because you're actually, I have to clean up a lot after that.
Yeah,
So,
no, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
let's double down on that for just a minute. So how do you think AI is changing those expectations for those managers, specifically the managers?
The
How would
expectation. Sorry, no, you go ahead, Sarika.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say the expectations of the managers, of the employees, or of themselves. Sorry.
For managers. So how's the AI changing expectations for managers? So we talked a little bit about how they're using it or not using it, but
Right.
from the top down, the expectation is we bought this tool or we have this, application. We're assuming that you know how to do it and use it, and you have certain, expectations that come with that. That's heavy, a lot. How do you see those expectations filtering down?
I just think we're asking managers to do an impossible job.
Yeah.
And we continue to ask them to do more and give them the tools, like Sarika was saying, but then we don't follow through with the actual enablement piece of the tools. So I think the theory is they can all get better at feedback. They can all get better at all these things that we have them do because we're giving them this tool. And so that expectation of them is actually going up. But I do see a lot of managers are just struggling. Team sizes have decreased since the start of 2026, or increased, sorry. So managers are now managing even more people. And so I just think this is yet another thing we're asking managers to do, and we're raising the bar on them again.
Yes, but, and I don't know, one of those prepositions. I do think that AI is raising the bar on things that are distinctly human, right? And because of that, it's making it harder for managers to hide behind those gaps.
Right.
Because you could hide before AI on the coordination, the status updates, the scheduling of the reviews, getting all the information from different places, right? All of that stuff that now actually, if you work to set it up and you set up, whether it's the second brain or some amount of workflows or using MCP to orchestrate data from different places, all of that gets automated, right? And then what is left with the time? This is the whole thing. We got okay, you've just saved yourself 2 hours of coordination time per individual, per direct report. So what are you doing with those 2 hours of that time you've been given back? Now take one of those 2 hours, and then you have to spend time actively building your soft skills, actively treating your managers not as coordinators, but as true developers, right? They are now having to lean in more on building their ability to provide sound judgment and coaching and building the relationship. And those soft skills are the hardest damn skills out there. And managers used to be able to hide behind that because there's all this other stuff that came with performance reviews. But if we are now setting these things up, whether it's tools that we buy or tools that we build or some blend of the two, now our work becomes more so, I think, about it's a different skill set that we have to hone in on. And it's less about the process, because the process, a lot of those things can get automated, but it's more practically about investing more in manager development, and actual coaching, actual giving feedback, kind of back to your point, Hebba, where you started with feedback Fridays and focusing on giving people that training and development on how to actually provide feedback and clarity. How do you do that? Aligning with goals. What does it mean to set goals and OKRs? And how does that tie to the business? And how does somebody see their work tied to the business? That's where they get to spend a lot more time. And I think what's happening is AI is making that piece of it, the soft skills piece of it, it's creating a lot more urgency around the need to focus there than on some of these other places that can get automated.
Yeah, we talk about it as, what should managers still fully own? What should they own? Regardless of how advanced AI becomes, what should they own? And you've touched on some of those. Hebba, do you have anything to add to that?
No, just the real human stuff of it is what managers should own. They should be thinking thoughtfully about, how do I connect with this person and understand what it is they need to be successful? AI can't figure that out for managers. Sure, managers could drop a JD in there and say what do you think this person's growth path could look like? Yes, absolutely. But having the actual conversation when somebody is disclosing to you, this is what I want for my career, having the emotional intelligence and the EQ to be present in that conversation and have a response, I think is just, for so long, it's kind of just been we write off the managers, managers can't have this conversation well. But I do think it's changing the expectation of, okay, well, if they have all these tools to tell them how to have the conversation well, now they need to actually have the conversation well.
Exactly. All right. Yes. Are there any use cases around AI and performance that make you uncomfortable or even cautious?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Promotions to me feels like a weird area. One, because I have never run a promotions process that I didn't have to do like a bias check or actual follow up in, because people are ignored. Certain people are promoted over others. The loudest voices in the room win. And I do worry about a future where AI is like, so and so should be promoted because da da da. But then I think of the flip side where I'm like, could AI actually take the subjectivity out of it if we got really smart about how we were doing reviews? I don't know. I'm still very dubious of that. But I think promotions are my biggest red flag area.
I agree. I would tie that even to just like using AI to generate, the performance ratings or inform like somebody's compensation decision if tied to performance without any type of human in the loop to like explain the reasoning and the judgment behind that and like provide the very clear-cut evidence. That makes me really nervous. I also get uncomfortable and I'm cautious about AI sentiment analysis on things. I think it can be done well, but there's a lot of, I'm someone that like, if I'm using a tool that is claiming that they can do that, like I'm going to want to see the back end of that. Like, well, tell me how that it comes to that. Like, what's the formula? What's the data? What are your sources? How do you, like, I need to see that. Like, and is this like being rated by some, reputable independent agency that's telling you that this is like accurate and unbiased? It's kind of to your point, Hebba, like, how do we do this where hopefully there'll be a point where we feel like AI could be more subjective. I don't think we're there yet entirely. But like things like Slack messages, emails, meeting participation, like using that. And it's not that we don't do it already today, but then like feeling like we're now going to layer AI into giving us more of that analysis or that sentiment a lot faster on like somebody's behavioral signals as a proxy for their engagement or their performance. Like that to me feels uncomfortable. Like, and there's a pretty meaningful difference between someone being quiet in a meeting because they're disengaged or someone being quiet because they might process differently. And I can't give you that information. Sorry, they can't. That's where the human in the loop and the judgment call is still a very important part of our jobs, both as managers, as HR leaders, what have you. That's another area that really makes me uncomfortable of how people, and for me, like AI should make evidence and data more visible and be able to help us synthesize that information faster. But it absolutely, there will never be a day or a time that you're going to convince me otherwise that it should ever be the one making the judgment call on anything, especially as it relates to humans and performance and behaviors. Not going to happen in my world.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. We call AI the draft, but it is not the final product. And so that's how we refer to it. And it's a great draft. It's great data. It's great informative information, 100%. But it is not the final decision. So Cynthia in the chat had a question here. She said, a couple of thoughts back. Curious how that balance on coaching with the introduction of AI coaching tools to guide managers. Is there a tipping point on enablement versus doing? Any comments on that?
In terms of the coach doing all the work on giving the feedback to the employee?
Versus doing,
Yeah. So I think, I mean, there is. Where I have seen AI coaching tools, whether they're ones that are in market that I've looked at, or even things that we're trying to cobble together in our own organization, I always look at it as I want it to just be used to provide like insights and signal in the honestly, like delivering it in the moments that I actually need it. Like it knows that I'm about to walk into a one-on-one and it reads my last one-on-one conversation and it tells me, hey, Sarika, the last time you talked to Hebba, she was really struggling with X, Y, and Z. Make sure to follow up. Like more so like you're surfacing the insights when I need it to give me the signal to have the right conversation. That's where I like AI coaching tools. And even if you go so far as like I've seen AI coaching tools that will also take like, okay, there's different behavioral assessments that you can take. And so it knows who I am as a leader, how I communicate, versus how Hebba likes to communicate or receive communication or receive feedback. And hey, Sarika, be careful. It's so funny. I just had this conversation with someone that's worked for me for some time here at my organization that said, when I first started working with you, you're so smart, but you're like very strong and like, you're very like direct and matter of fact. And like you move on. It's like, there's always things you move on to the next thing, but you're like, no, do it. No. Hey, here's the feedback here. Do this. But you're hard to read sometimes on, are you upset? Are you not upset? Do you like, are you mad at me? And I was like, oh, so when she shared that with me, I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I'm not mad at all. I'm just like on to the next thing. I'm trying to provide you guys as much context. But I didn't realize that about myself until someone tells me that. But not everybody's going to tell you that, right? You have to build the relationship. But so part of building that relationship is understanding how each likes to receive information, how each likes to communicate. And that's where I feel like some of these AI coaching tools are super helpful. But I don't want an AI coaching tool to do the coaching for me. I want it to surface the insights that I need to help me give the right feedback and deliver it in a way that I know that the person is going to receive that well, and in a way that they're going to hear me. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is about. It's not about me just checking the box to deliver feedback. It's, I want to give you feedback. I care about you. I care about your development. I care about the work. I care about this organization. I want us to be a high performing organization that can hit all of our goals, and I can pay everybody all the money in the world, right? But I can't do that if this whole system doesn't work. And to me, it's just a means to like getting the system to work as it's intended.
Yeah. I think the interesting part about AI coaching tools is like they should never, I am pro AI coaching tools, but never from the angle of the AI tool is doing the coaching.
100%.
From the angle of I don't have like I now have time in my calendar to let managers practice difficult conversations with me. I don't always have that time. So if I could have an AI coaching tool where it is trained on what it is our values are, how we want to deliver feedback, how best to have a difficult conversation, and the managers are actually using the coaching tools to practice that conversation to like help prepare them for it so that I, a human physical HR person, does not have to be there for them. I'm like pro that more than I am an AI coaching tool ever delivering the feedback. I also think AI coaching tools can help uncover gaps between an employee and a manager that they might themselves not be able to identify. We all have like a subset for like how, or a standard for how we work, a default for how we work. What if my default is different than my direct reports and I cannot seem to grasp their perspective? They can't seem to grasp my perspective. And now we are having friction every day in our work. An AI coaching tool could potentially alleviate that friction simply by telling us how we work together better. It's not there to give my direct report the feedback or to give me the feedback. It's there to uncover things that like we might not necessarily be able to do due to our own shortcomings. We all have shortcomings. So like due to our own shortcomings, like to me, it's enablement always. Enablement is always the play on AI coaching tools. It should not be doing or delivering anything that a human being should do.
Well said. All right. So before we shift into what modern performance management actually looks like in practice, I want to get another quick pulse check from the audience because I'm curious where the operational pain is showing up most in teams today. So where is your organization currently spending most time in performance management? Okay. We'll give it just a second here.
Oh my God, I want to choose like multiple.
Yeah. All right. What are we seeing here? Are we surprised here?
No.
No, not on the right. I guess I thought pulling context together
would be more.
Symptoms would be higher. Yeah. Yeah. But the writing confused doesn't surprise me.
I'm wondering if calibration conversations is low because people don't have them.
Or because they haven't had them yet.
Yeah.
Depending on their cycle. Could be. I thought that too, because that's awfully time consuming most of the time.
It is in a lot of companies. Well, there's been a time where older tools that I used didn't have calibration. They didn't have that like feature or capability inside their performance module.
Yeah, it's mathematical gymnastics for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so let's spend the rest of our time talking about what a more modern approach to performance might look like. So for both of you, when you think about modern performance management, what does it actually look like in practice?
It's a good question.
It's a loaded question, honestly.
It is, because there's so many.
I really think it's something, if it were modern to me, it would be in the flow state of work where you wouldn't even have to stop to think to yourself, is this performance management? And instead it would just be, this is a behavior we all do in this organization in between our flow of work. It would be so natural that I wouldn't even be able to distinguish that it was performance management.
Agreed. To me, it would be truly continuous, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about the review is not just about the performance conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's having those conversations, like to your point, in the flow of the work, right? If
Yeah.
Someone should never hear something significant about their development or their work, positive or opportunity wise, for the first time in any type of like review, right? That's a failure of the process. I feel like modern performance does actually happen in, like to your point, Hebba, in the one-on-ones, in the real-time feedbacks, in the goal or OKR check-ins. The formal process is really just something to help synthesize it for that period of time.
Yeah.
I also think that modern performance to very clearly be connected to the work, and employees have to understand how it is connected to the work and how their work and their individual components is attached to the company's like broader OKRs and like the success or lack thereof of the organization. I think sometimes I've been doing a lot of like smaller focus groups as we've been like burning down performance in our own organization and rebuilding it piece by piece.
Yeah.
But I'm not rebuilding it just with my team. I'm rebuilding it with different groups of employees because I want to understand what is working and what is not working. What would be ideal? And certain things I can tell them, oh, we can do that. We can't do that. Let me explain why. But it gives me the opportunity to have those conversations. But one of the things that has been so clearly articulated is it feels irrelevant because it's disconnected from the work that is actually getting done.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about OKRs over here, and then we talk about performance over here, and then one-on-ones feels over here. Like it doesn't feel like it all flows and it's all interconnected, right? And things all need, like goals should be live. Feedback is tied to all of that. Calibration should happen also close enough to the work also that managers can actually articulate why you've given someone a rating. And then I think lastly, but definitely not really, like probably the most important thing is it's got to be about development of people, not an evaluation of performance as a means of deciding whether they stay or they go, or whether you give them this comp or that comp. Like that's the shift. Truly, if we do modern performance well, should that not be what this is about? Is about people's development and their ability to deliver and their ability to feel like they're doing good work and delivering on something that is valuable to the organization. Evaluating somebody is like telling them where they've landed in this moment of time. Whereas development of an individual is guiding them and partnering with them and telling them how to move. How do you move in your role? How do you build in your career? How do you build skills? Like that's what development is more about. And I feel like the way the system's always been set up, it's always been about an evaluation. It's never been about their actual development and how to get them from point A to point B.
Yeah. I heard one large of the Fortune 100 company tell me, we feel like we want performance to be subconscious, not just conscious. And what they were saying was conscious is, the performance, the reviews, the one-on-ones, etc. Subconscious is continuous. It's who we are as an organization.
I love that.
Up people forward. I thought it was brilliant. It really lends to what you all are saying here. Hebba, what are you seeing work well when it comes to creating more continuous feedback cultures? What's working and then what's not?
You have to build the habit. Everybody who is like, I want to build a continuous feedback habit or a continuous feedback program, I'm like, you got to get your managers in the habit and you have to hold them accountable. It cannot just be we're giving people feedback every 2 weeks. It needs to be documented on the calendar. And if I hear that you're not doing it, I will be intervening and forcing you to do it. Like it is a level of accountability that I think a lot of managers might not be ready for. We basically, how we did it to get buy-in from our managers was we pulled our managers together and said, we really want this to be a place where people learn and grow. And the only way to do this is to turn this into something you do regularly. We are going to help you by giving you like a framework and a system to do it in, but you need to do your manager part by doing it. And then we had our COO share stories, our CEO share stories of what he learns in his feedback Fridays. And it has just taken off. And I think it was because we set that groundwork very early on that like, this is what's expected of you.
And is it tied to their performance?
No, but I wish it was.
I've seen that where it is.
Yeah. I mean, I am pro demanagering people. I think I said this in like an HR therapy recently. I was like, not everyone should be a manager. Some of you need to be demoted from management. And like, I think if you're having conversations and elevating the bar for your managers, also telling them like, this is not for everybody. Like, I think the hard part is we often don't have career paths for ICs. So people see management as the only way to elevate their career. So if you can also solve that problem too, it probably makes your management problem way less. Like, people should not be a manager unless they actively want to do this job.
Right. And do it well.
Yeah, the show's hard. I'm like, I'm a manager and I learn new things every day about being a better manager. It's like an ending cycle.
You learn new things.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love when I'm doing a manager enablement session and you have a manager who's like seasoned, but not good. Oh, I already know all this. Oh, you do? Oh, cool. Why aren't you doing it then? If you know all of this.
There you go. There you go.
Why aren't you doing it? Because that's why you're in this conversation today, my friend. They don't want to hear all that.
That's such a good point.
Sarika, what's one performance management practice you think organizations should just stop doing entirely? Just stop it.
Ooh.
Stop doing entirely. You know, I've always felt this way, and like the force distribution, like the stack ranking, the force, you know, and I get it. I get that it is hard because there are times that you're going to have to make decisions where budget will only allow you to reward the top 20%, you know, in performance. So you got to be able to like understand where people rack stick. I get all of that, but I have seen organizations make decisions about people's performance and the ratings, not based off of the actual performance and what outcomes they're driving, but more so on who's most visible, who do they know, and what we can only have 20% in this bucket right here.
Right.
And then you start pushing people into different areas, which has nothing to do with the person's performance at all. And so for me, like, while I understand the historical logic of it, I think there's a better way that we can get to the same type of information or be able to get to the data that we need to make the decisions if we get stuck with, I only have this much budget, et cetera, whatever it might look like. But I fucking hate it so much.
Yeah, it becomes a financial exercise, not a people exercise.
Yes.
Now, I also caveat that with like, if the business isn't performing, but you also want to tell me that 40% of the business is high performers, like I'm gonna like
pause.
I'm like, actually, that doesn't quite work. So that isn't actually about like force ring. I think that's more about, okay, let's get back to the fundamentals of like, why do we rate people this way? And like, I think that then you kind of come back to the table of calibration and having some like really difficult conversations, because those two things that can't like mathematically make sense.
Well, yeah, it would mean, you know, we've got 40% of the people that are good at something that's not relevant to what we need them to be good at.
Yeah,
exactly.
How is that valuable? Yes, absolutely.
Right. Exactly.
All right. If an organization knows its current performance platform is just not, or performance process isn't working, but doesn't know where to start, what's the first thing they should focus on for both of you?
They don't know their performance processes.
You what?
They know it's not working.
They know it's
not working. Start.
Talk to your people. Talk to your people. Ask them what's not working. We do not have all the answers. And I'll tell you what, the data that we have doesn't give us all the answers, because there's always something brewing underneath what some of the data is telling us. Because I have made this mistake multiple times here where I have refined based off of feedback I'm getting from engagement surveys or exit interviews or pay interviews or whatever. And then I realize that I'm solving the wrong freaking problem, because sometimes I'm not going to get that from an anonymous survey. Sometimes I just need to get in there and have face-to-face conversations with people in a safe environment to be able to ask follow-on questions. And that I have been doing that, I would say now for the last 4 or 5 months. And it is so crazy to me, the ahas I've had. Like one of the ahas I had recently was, Sarika, you know, we totally get what you're saying when you're like, an employee owns their career, right? That's your manager's job. That's not my job. My job is to create the infrastructure and to enable and have the culture and enable everyone to be able to grow their careers here, to get the skills that they need, to be given the feedback, right? That I'm building that system and infrastructure, and managers are a part. But at the end of the day, it's your career. You need to advocate for yourself. You need to articulate what it is you want, what you don't want, right? All that. What I found was I had a young engineer come to me and say, hey, Sarika, you say this a lot and I completely agree. But another perspective that maybe you're not thinking about just because you've been in the workforce for a nice way of saying you're old. You're a dinosaur in the space, is young talent, especially young talent who have never worked in office, even have never been co-located to see how things work and learn by osmosis and all that, having those conversations and having mentors by watching. They don't know what that means. They don't know what it means to own their career or to advocate or to ask the questions on what they need. They don't know how to do that. And the system isn't set up in a way that makes that clear to us. They don't understand how to use this career framework in the ways of, how does this then help me get to where I'm trying to go? And I literally sat back and melted into my chair. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how the hell did I not see that? That was, and I'm like, I've taken for granted that I for many years of my career, I worked in an office, and there were just, by nature, there are certain things that you get from being co-located with people that you just sort of understand innately about how work gets done and how to advocate and how to speak up and who to go to. You don't get that as much when you're working remotely because you don't see as much in the same ways. And you don't have mentors talking you to that you can go grab a coffee with. It was a little bit more in the flow of how work worked back then. Whereas in a remote environment with 5, generations in the workforce that have all worked differently, they don't receive it the same way and they don't understand. And so to me, what I have found is oh my God, this is such an eye opener. I'm asking people what it is that they want. What do you not like about these questions? What would be better suited? And then I can have a back and forth conversation. And I feel like that has definitely so far has boded well. Even just people telling me I need a tool to understand, I'm here, I want to get to here. What's the difference between these two levels? What do I need to do? How do I plug in my own performance there? And I'm like, oh, with Claude and things now, I can build those things. I can do those things. I just didn't know that that's what it is that they really needed. So I would say start by asking your people what it is they want and that they're not getting today.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I won't belabor that one, and I'll go the opposite direction. Make sure your tech actually serves you. There's so many things I wish I could do, but I don't have the right tech stack to do it. And so when you're evaluating tech tools to help you achieve this problem, it should not just be, how do I solve this problem today? You should be thinking about what your problems might look like 6 months, 12 months to a year from now. And the tech you pick should be one that could be flexible enough to solve said problems.
Very valid point.
So,
all right. I know we're getting on time. 30 seconds for each of you on a wrap-up question. What's one small shift organizations can make today that would be meaningful and impactful to their performance culture? And Sarika, we'll start with you.
I have one.
Separate giving feedback, providing, having the feedback conversations with your employees from the performance rating in and of itself from a review, right? And make one ongoing, something you're having constantly and feel safe and comfortable. And the other one is a moment in time to assess a period of performance.
I would say define what good looks like. How often do we not know what good performance actually is? You need to sit down to define, what does underperforming look like? What does good look like? And I would even say, what does raising the bar and outperformance actually look like? So many people conflate good with outperformance, and so many managers make it a subjective thing instead of an objective thing.
Love it. Love it. All right. We're going to wrap this one up. I want to extend a massive thank you to Hebba and Sarika for sharing all their practical knowledge and perspective with us. You guys are amazing. Thank you. Thank you. And on behalf of the entire Klaar team, I want to thank you to everyone who attended today. You will receive a copy of the webinar shortly. I think it's already actually, there's something in the chat about that. And we'll send a recap blog tomorrow. If you'd like to learn more about Klaar and how we're thinking about modern AI-powered performance management, feel free to check us out at klaarhq.com. And for anyone actively exploring performance management solutions, we're always offering a little something fun, and especially today. So if you book a demo with the Klaar team today, we'll send you our favorite HR. They can speak to this. They both have them. We have these amazing red, luxuriously soft crew necks.
They are amazing.
Everyone loves them. So the demo itself doesn't need to happen today, of course. We just need you to put something on the calendar, and we will send that out. And these two can certainly attest to how comfy those are. They're great for a rainy day or just relaxing. So finally, before we go, mark your calendars for the next webinar. It's on June 23rd with Adam Weber, and it's on what high care plus high performance actually looks like in practice. So we'd love to see you there. Please join us. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and we hope to see you next month.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everybody.